Emily stared at her reflection in the cracked dorm mirror, tugging at her secondhand sweater that had seen better days. The fabric was soft from too many washes, but it screamed thrift store to anyone who cared to notice, and at Westfield University, everyone noticed. She grabbed her worn backpack and headed to her morning economics class, where whispers followed her like shadows. "Look at her shoes," one girl giggled behind manicured nails. "I think my mom donated those to Goodwill last year." Emily's cheeks burned as she slipped into the back row, trying to make herself invisible. That's when she spotted Alex across the room, his warm brown eyes lighting up when he saw her. He was everything she didn't deserve: kind, intelligent, and completely unbothered by her financial situation. "Hey, beautiful," Alex whispered, sliding into the seat beside her. "Want to grab lunch after this? I found this amazing little taco truck that's super affordable." Emily's heart sank. Even his thoughtfulness reminded her of what she couldn't afford. "I can't today," she mumbled, avoiding his concerned gaze. After class, Emily was stuffing books into her locker when three perfectly polished girls approached. Madison, the sorority president, looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine with her platinum blonde hair and designer everything. "Emily, right?" Madison's voice dripped with fake sweetness. "We've been watching you in Professor Chen's class. You're actually pretty smart for someone who shops at secondhand stores." Emily's stomach twisted, but she forced a smile. "Thanks, I guess." "We're having a little get-together tonight," said Brittany, Madison's second in command. "Invitation only, of course, but we might have a spot for the right kind of girl." Emily's pulse quickened. This was it, her chance to escape the suffocating bubble of poverty that followed her everywhere. "What kind of girl?" Emily asked, hating how desperate she sounded. Madison's eyes swept over Emily's outfit with obvious disapproval. "Well, first things first. Girls like you need to be size 0 to fit in here. Image is everything in our circle." The words hit like a slap, but Emily nodded eagerly. "I can do that." "And another thing," Brittany added with a smirk, "you might want to reconsider your choice in companionship. That charity case you hang around with isn't exactly sorority material." Emily's blood ran cold. They were talking about Alex. Sweet, loyal Alex who'd never made her feel ashamed of her background. As if summoned by her thoughts, Alex appeared around the corner, his face breaking into that gorgeous smile she'd fallen for freshman orientation week. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." He reached for her hand, but Emily stepped back. The sorority girls exchanged knowing looks, and Emily felt the weight of their judgment crushing her chest. "Actually, Alex," Emily's voice came out shakier than she intended. "I think we need to talk." Alex's smile faded as he noticed the three girls watching like vultures. "What's going on?" Emily's hands trembled as she looked between Alex's confused face and Madison's expectant smirk. This was her moment, her chance to prove she belonged with the elite crowd. "I think we should break up," she blurted out, the words tasting like poison in her mouth. Alex's face crumpled like she'd physically struck him. "What? Emily, what are you talking about? Did I do something wrong?" Students in the hallway began to slow down, sensing drama. Emily's chest felt tight, but Madison's approving nod spurred her forward. "We're just different," Emily said, each word cutting deeper than the last. "I need to focus on my future, and honestly, I don't think you fit into the life I want." The hurt in Alex's eyes was devastating, but he nodded slowly. "I see. Well, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Emily. You deserve to be happy." As Alex walked away with quiet dignity, Emily felt something break inside her chest, but Madison's hand on her shoulder brought her back to reality. "Well done," Madison purred. "That took real strength. Welcome to the inner circle." 3 hours later, Emily sat alone in her tiny dorm room, staring at the text Alex had sent before she blocked his number. "You're perfect as you are. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." She deleted it and threw her phone aside, wiping away tears she refused to acknowledge. The next morning, Emily started her new part-time job at the campus health clinic. She needed money desperately. The sorority girls had made it clear that fitting in required a complete wardrobe overhaul. You'll mostly be filing and organizing inventory, explained Dr. Patricia Wells, the clinic supervisor. It's not glamorous, but it pays above minimum wage. Emily nodded gratefully, already calculating how many shifts she'd need to afford one decent outfit. As weeks passed, Emily threw herself into the sorority world with desperate determination. She skipped meals to lose weight, spent her clinic paychecks on clothes, and pretended to enjoy conversations about things she couldn't afford. But late one evening, while organizing the clinic's storage room, Emily overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. "Just make sure the new batch looks identical," a man's voice said from the next room. "Nobody checks the ingredient lists on these diet supplements anyway." Emily pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. "The real stuff costs too much," replied Dr. Wells. "This cheaper substitute will do the same thing, more or less." Emily's hands shook as she realized what she was hearing. They were tampering with medication, cutting corners to save money, while patients trusted them with their health. She looked down at the boxes of miracle diet pills stacked around her, the same ones wealthy sorority girls raved about. An idea began forming in her mind, dangerous, desperate, but potentially profitable. If she could get her hands on some of these pills, she could sell them to girls desperate to lose weight quickly. The money would solve all her problems. As Emily stared at the boxes surrounding her, she made a choice that would change everything. 2 weeks after stealing her first batch of pills, Emily had transformed into someone she barely recognized. Designer jeans hugged her shrinking frame, and a genuine Louis Vuitton bag hung from her shoulder, paid for with dirty money that felt surprisingly clean in her hands. "Oh my God, Emily, you look absolutely incredible," Madison gushed at the sorority house, running her manicured fingers along Emily's new silk blouse. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. You're finally starting to look like one of us." Emily's chest swelled with pride and shame in equal measure. "Thanks. I've been working really hard." In her dorm room that evening, Emily's roommate Sarah bounced excitedly on her worn comforter. Sarah was everything Emily used to be bright-eyed, hopeful, and painfully naive about how cruel the world could be to poor girls. I've been watching you totally glow up lately," Sarah said, her eyes wide with admiration. "Like, seriously, you look like a completely different person. What's your secret?" Emily hesitated, looking at Sarah's eager face. Her roommate came from the same kind of background: food stamps, hand-me-down clothes, and dreams bigger than their bank accounts. "I found these amazing supplements," Emily finally said, pulling a bottle from her designer bag. "They're like totally natural and give you an instant glow up without having to kill yourself at the gym." Sarah's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? How much?" "For you? Just $50. But don't tell anyone, okay? I can only get a limited supply." That weekend, Emily's pill business exploded across campus. Girls whispered about her miracle supplements in bathroom stalls and sorority study sessions. The money rolled in faster than Emily could count it. At Madison's exclusive rooftop party, Emily watched her customers with growing unease. Chloe, a usually energetic sophomore, swayed slightly as she posed for Instagram photos. "I am literally so snatched right now," Chloe announced to anyone who would listen, striking a pose. "Like, I've lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks without even trying." She took a dramatic step forward for emphasis and immediately stumbled, catching herself on a nearby table. The champagne glasses rattled dangerously. "Whoa, girl. Maybe slow down on the drinks," Madison laughed, but her eyes narrowed with concern. "I'm not even drunk," Chloe protested, but Emily noticed the slight tremor in her hands. Across the party, Emily spotted more troubling signs. Jessica kept excusing herself to the bathroom, and Amber looked pale despite her perfectly applied bronzer. Emily's stomach twisted, but she pushed the guilt down deep. Later that week, Brittany cornered Emily outside the economics building. Despite her sweet sorority sister facade, Brittany came from old money and wasn't afraid to show it. "I need more of those pills," Brittany said, sliding an envelope thick with cash into Emily's hands. "But I have some advice for you, girl to girl." Emily's pulse quickened. "What kind of advice?" "I've been watching you and you're doing great. Really great. But if you want to stay in our circle, you need to be more careful about your associations. Brittany's voice dropped to a whisper. I saw you talking to that Alex guy yesterday by the library. People notice these things. Emily's defenses flared. Alex is a good person. He's pre-med with a 4 gigapascals. I'm sure he's lovely, Brittany said with fake sympathy. But hanging with those diverse types doesn't exactly fit our image, you know? The other girls are starting to talk, and trust me, you don't want to become yesterday's news. The words hit Emily like ice water, but she found herself nodding. I understand. Good girl, you're learning fast. Brittany squeezed Emily's shoulder possessively. Just remember, image is everything in our world. That evening, Emily returned to her dorm to find Sarah hunched over her desk, looking distinctly green around the edges. Hey, how are you feeling? Emily asked, though she dreaded the answer. Amazing, actually, Sarah said, but her voice sounded weak. I've lost 8 pounds already. These pills are incredible, Em. I just feel a little dizzy sometimes, but that's normal, right? Emily's throat tightened. Maybe you should eat something. No way! I'm finally seeing results. Sarah stood up too quickly and swayed, gripping the desk for support. I just need to push through it. 3 days later, Emily was in the middle of her shift at the clinic when her phone exploded with texts. The first one made her blood run cold. Sarah's in the hospital. Come now. Emily's hands shook as she read message after message from panicked dormmates. Sarah had collapsed during her morning jog and was rushed to the emergency room. Emily burst through the hospital doors to find Sarah's mother crying in the waiting room. Mrs. Chen looked exactly like Emily's own mother, tired, worried, and wearing her work uniform because she'd rushed straight from her job. Emily, thank God you're here, Mrs. Chen sobbed. The doctors don't know what's wrong. Sarah's heart is racing and she can't stop vomiting. She keeps saying she just wanted to lose weight for some sorority thing. Emily felt like she was drowning. Is she going to be okay? They're running tests now. But Emily, did you know about any diet pills? The doctors found an empty bottle in her backpack. Emily's mind raced for a believable lie. She mentioned feeling stressed about grades lately. Maybe it's just exhaustion from studying too much? Mrs. Chen nodded desperately, wanting to believe anything that made sense. Yes, that must be it. She's been pushing herself so hard to fit in. As Emily sat in that sterile waiting room, a memory crashed over her like a tidal wave. She was 8 years old again, watching her mother count quarters at the kitchen table after working a double shift at the diner. Emily, baby, come here, her mother had said, pulling her into a warm hug that smelled like coffee and exhaustion. I know things are hard right now, but I want you to remember something important. Kindness costs nothing, but it's worth everything. No matter how much money we don't have, we can always afford to be good to people. Young Emily had nodded solemnly, not fully understanding but feeling the weight of her mother's words. Now, sitting in that hospital chair, those words felt like daggers in her chest. But when the nurses weren't looking, Emily quietly pulled out her phone and sent a text to her 3 best customers. New batch just came in. Same price, but limited supply. Cash only. She hit send before she could change her mind, shoving down the voice in her head that sounded suspiciously like her mother. The money was too good to stop now. The campus erupted into chaos on a Tuesday morning that Emily would never forget. By 8 a.m., 17 students had been rushed to the emergency room with identical symptoms: severe dehydration, heart palpitations, and uncontrollable vomiting. Emily's phone buzzed nonstop with panicked messages from her customers. The pills you sold me landed me in the ER. My roommate is unconscious. What did you give us? Her hands shook as she watched the local news report from her dorm room. Westfield University is investigating a mysterious outbreak affecting nearly 20 students, all young women who reportedly took unregulated diet supplements. Within hours, campus security was interviewing students, and Emily knew it was only a matter of time before they traced the pills back to her. That afternoon, Dr. Wells called an emergency meeting at the clinic. Emily sat in the conference room, her palms sweaty, as investigators presented their findings. The pills these students consumed weren't just fake, announced Detective Rodriguez, flipping through a thick file. They contained saline solution mixed with industrial caffeine and untested appetite suppressants. Someone deliberately tampered with legitimate supplements. Emily's blood ran cold as Dr. Wells shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Furthermore, the detective continued, our investigation reveals this tampering occurred right here in your clinic. Dr. Wells, we have evidence that you've been substituting real medications with cheaper, dangerous alternatives to cut costs. Dr. Wells finally broke. Look, the board was pressuring me to reduce expenses. They said if I couldn't make the clinic profitable, they'd shut us down. The wealthy donors were threatening to pull funding. Emily stared in horror as the truth unraveled. She'd been selling poison that was even worse than she'd realized. By evening, word had spread across campus like wildfire. Emily was walking to her dorm when Madison and Brittany cornered her outside the student center. You absolute disaster, Brittany hissed, her perfect composure finally cracking. Do you have any idea what you've done to our reputation? Madison crossed her arms, her voice dripping with disgust. The whole campus knows those pills came from sorority girls. Our image is completely ruined because of you. Wait, I thought we were friends, Emily stammered, backing against the brick wall. Brittany laughed coldly. Friends? Emily, you were a charity project. A poor girl we thought we could polish up for entertainment, but poor girls like you always cause drama eventually. You're the ones who pressured me to lose weight. Emily shot back, finding her voice. You told me I had to be a size 0 to matter. You made me hate everything about myself. Don't blame us for your choices, Madison snapped. We never told you to sell drugs. You pressure us to starve for your approval, Emily exploded, her voice echoing across the courtyard. You make girls hate themselves so much that we'll do anything to fit your impossible standards. A crowd was gathering, drawn by the shouting. Emily noticed phones being raised, recording everything. And another thing, Emily continued, her anger building. You told me to dump Alex because he wasn't the right image for you. Well, guess what? He's worth 10 of you, fake, shallow. That's enough, Brittany cut her off. Security, this girl has been harassing us. But before campus security could respond, a familiar voice cut through the crowd. Actually, I think everyone needs to hear what Emily has to say. Emily's heart stopped as Alex stepped forward, holding a laptop and looking more determined than she'd ever seen him. Alex? Emily whispered, tears already forming in her eyes. I've been investigating the clinic tampering for weeks, Alex announced to the growing crowd. I accessed their computer logs as part of my cybersecurity internship. Dr. Wells has been cutting corners for months, endangering students to appease wealthy board members. He opened his laptop, projecting the evidence onto a nearby building wall. But more importantly, these sorority leaders knew about the health risks and encouraged girls to keep taking the pills anyway. Brittany's face went white as Alex displayed private text messages. They called it thinning the herd and joked about weaker girls dropping out. The crowd gasped in horror. Emily felt sick, but also strangely relieved that the truth was finally coming out. Alex, I'm so sorry, Emily sobbed, pushing through the crowd toward him. I was blind to real friends. I was so desperate to fit in that I lost everything that mattered. Alex's expression softened as Emily reached him. I never stopped believing in the real you, Em. The girl I fell for was kind and authentic, not this person you thought you had to become. Emily threw her arms around him, not caring who was watching. I poisoned people, Alex. I almost killed Sarah trying to be someone I'm not. We'll fix this together, Alex whispered, holding her tight. Emily pulled away and faced the crowd, her voice shaking but clear. My name is Emily, and I sold those pills. I stole them from the clinic and sold them to students, including my roommate Sarah, who's still in the hospital because of me. The crowd murmured, but Emily pressed on. I'm not making excuses, but I want everyone to know how these pressures work. How they make us hate ourselves so much that we'll risk everything just to feel worthy. Just then, Madison tried to push through the crowd to escape, but slipped spectacularly on a puddle of vomit left by one of the 6 students. She went down hard, her designer heels flying off as students around her grimaced and stepped back. Karma, someone in the crowd muttered, and nervous laughter rippled through the group. But Emily's moment of vindication was short-lived. Dean Morrison pushed through the crowd, his face grim. "Miss Chen, you're to report to my office immediately. Based on what I've heard here tonight, you're facing serious disciplinary action, including possible expulsion." As the crowd began to disperse, Emily felt the weight of her choices crushing down on her. She'd exposed the truth, but at what cost? Everything she'd worked for was crumbling, and she had no one to blame but herself. 3 weeks later, Emily sat in the courthouse witness stand, her voice steady despite the cameras and crowded gallery. She wore a simple thrift store dress, the same kind of outfit that once made her feel ashamed, but now felt like armor of authenticity. Dr. Wells knew the supplements were contaminated, Emily testified, looking directly at the jury. She told me herself that cutting corners was necessary to keep the wealthy donors happy. She prioritized profit over student safety. The prosecutor nodded encouragingly. "And what motivated you to come forward with this information?" Emily glanced at Alex in the gallery, drawing strength from his supportive smile. "I realized that staying silent would make me just as guilty as the people who hurt my friends. Someone had to speak up for students like Sarah, like me, students who don't have powerful families to protect them." Dr. Wells was sentenced to 5 years in prison for endangering students and medical fraud. The corrupt board members who pressured her resigned in disgrace, and the university implemented new oversight protocols for all campus health services. But Emily's real work was just beginning. 2 months after the trial, Emily stood nervously outside the student activities office, holding a stack of paperwork for her new organization. Alex squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Ready to change the world?" he asked with that familiar warm smile. "One student at a time," Emily replied, pushing open the door. The Bridge the Divide Club started small, just Emily, Alex, and 3 other students meeting in a cramped study room. But word spread quickly about their mission, providing scholarships for low-income students, hosting body positivity workshops, and creating safe spaces for anyone who felt like an outsider. "The beauty industry makes billions convincing us we're not enough," Emily addressed her first workshop audience of 30 students. "But real beauty comes from authenticity, from being brave enough to be yourself in a world that profits from your insecurities." A shy freshman raised her hand. "But what if being yourself means people reject you?" Emily smiled, thinking of her own journey. "Then you find your real tribe, the people who love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be." The club's scholarship program grew beyond Emily's wildest dreams. Alumni donated generously after hearing about students who'd overcome real hardship to succeed academically. Within 6 months, they'd raised enough money to help 25 students afford textbooks, meal plans, and other essentials. One afternoon, Emily was reviewing scholarship applications when Sarah walked into the club office. She looked healthy and vibrant, nothing like the pale, shaking girl who'd collapsed months earlier. "Emily, I've been meaning to talk to you," Sarah said, settling into the chair across from Emily's desk. Emily's stomach clenched with familiar guilt. "Sarah, I know I can never undo what I did to you. I poisoned you because I was too selfish to." "Stop," Sarah interrupted gently. "Yes, you made terrible choices, but you also saved my life by speaking up. If you hadn't testified, Dr. Wells would still be hurting students. Your courage helped dozens of people get justice." Tears blurred Emily's vision. "I almost killed you for money and popularity." "But you didn't," Sarah said firmly. "You chose to do the right thing when it mattered most. That's the Emily I always believed in." They hugged tightly, both crying and laughing at the same time. The biggest surprise came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Emily was locking up the club office when she heard heels clicking down the hallway. She turned to find Brittany approaching, looking nothing like the polished sorority queen from months before. Emily, wait, Brittany called out, her voice uncertain. Emily tensed, remembering their last explosive confrontation. What do you want, Brittany? I want to apologize, Brittany said quietly. Really apologize, not just damage control. Emily studied her former tormentor's face, searching for signs of manipulation. Watching the trial, seeing how I treated you and other students, it made me face some ugly truths about myself, Brittany continued. I was raised to believe that people like you were beneath people like me. I'm ashamed of who I was. Words are easy, Brittany. What are you actually going to do differently? Brittany pulled out an envelope. This is a check for $10,000 for your scholarship fund, and I want to volunteer for your body positivity workshops. I think I need to learn as much as anyone. Emily stared at the check, then at Brittany's genuinely remorseful expression. Why should I trust you? Because I finally understand what you tried to tell me that night, Brittany said. We were pressuring girls to hate themselves. I was part of a system that nearly killed people, including you. I want to help fix what I helped break. Over the following months, Brittany became one of the club's most dedicated volunteers. She used her family connections to secure major donations and spoke honestly about her own struggles with eating disorders and social pressure. A year after the pill scandal, Emily stood before a packed auditorium for the club's first annual conference on campus inclusivity. Students, faculty, and community leaders filled every seat. What happens in the dark always comes to light, Emily concluded her keynote speech. The truth has a way of breaking through, no matter how many designer clothes or fake friendships we use to hide it. The audience erupted in applause. Emily spotted Alex beaming from the front row, Sarah cheering with her new friends, and even Brittany wiping away tears. Real beauty isn't about the size of your jeans or the price of your handbag, Emily continued. It's about the courage to be authentic, to lift others up instead of tearing them down, and to choose kindness even when it's hard. As Emily left the stage, she caught her reflection in the backstage mirror. She saw a young woman in a thrift store blazer, minimal makeup, and a genuine smile. For the first time in her life, she loved exactly what she saw. The girl who once sold poison for popularity had become someone who spreads healing instead. Hey fam, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories like this. What happens in the dark always comes to light, and real change starts with each of us choosing authenticity over approval. Practice kindness today, bridge those divides, and always remember that your worth isn't measured by anyone else's standards.